Hook. Google didn't just upgrade Gemini. It revealed a blueprint hiding in plain sight. What looks like chaos is actually coordination. And the pull of gravity just changed direction. Introduction. Welcome back to NeuroWire Signal, where we decode the moves behind the headlines before the world catches up. If you value deep signal over surface hype, like the video and subscribe, it helps this channel grow. Today isn't about a model release. It's about Google's long-term AGI Masterplan, quietly snapping into focus. The Gemini 3 drop that felt off. When Gemini 3 landed, the reactions were confused before they were impressed. Yes, the benchmarks were strong. Yes, the multimodal upgrades were real. But something about the release felt misaligned with the usual Google playbook. Features appeared before documentation. Capabilities surfaced before explanations. Developers noticed behaviors that weren't cleanly categorized as bugs or improvements. Gemini 3 didn't feel like a polished product. It felt like a live system. That alone was strange. Google is famous for controlled rollouts, cautious messaging, and gradual exposure. Gemini 3 broke that rhythm. And when a company like Google breaks its own rhythm, it's never accidental. Why Gemini 3 behaves less like a tool and more like a system? Previous Gemini versions felt reactive. You prompt, it responds. You ask, it answers. Gemini 3 introduced something else entirely: internal coherence across tasks. It remembers intent beyond single prompts. It reinterprets objectives mid-execution. It adapts not just to inputs, but to contextual direction. This is not simply better reasoning. This is goal stabilization. In multiple reports, Gemini 3 showed the ability to hold an abstract objective steady while navigating noisy instructions. That's not obedience. That's agency light. Google hasn't said this out loud, but the behavior says enough. The chaos narrative misses the point. Online discourse quickly labeled Gemini 3 as unstable or chaotic. But that framing misunderstands what's happening. Chaos implies randomness. Gemini 3 isn't random. It's under-constrained. Google appears to have deliberately loosened certain behavioral rails to observe what emerges when a system is allowed to reconcile conflicting goals internally. That's not a mistake, it's an experiment. And experiments like this are not run unless the destination is already mapped. Google's AGI strategy was never about one model. Unlike OpenAI or Anthropic, Google has never framed AGI as a single breakthrough moment. Internally, Google treats intelligence as an ecosystem problem. Models, infrastructure, search, memory, perception, and tools are all pieces of the same organism. Gemini 3 isn't the organism. It's a node. The master plan was never build the smartest chatbot. It was build a distributed intelligence that spans products, modalities, and time. Gemini 3 just made that visible. Why Gemini 3? Feels like it's pulling everything toward it. This is where the anti-gravity metaphor becomes useful. In physics, gravity pulls objects inward. Anti-gravity, conceptually, would reverse that pull, reshaping motion across a system. Gemini 3 doesn't just answer queries. It attracts integration. Tools, APIs, workflows, and other models begin to orbit around it. Developers aren't just using Gemini 3. They're reorganizing systems around it. That's not gravity. That's anti-gravity, a force that restructures environments instead of sitting inside them. Why memory is the real breakthrough. Intelligence without memory is reactive. Intelligence with memory becomes cumulative. Gemini 3 shows early signs of memory abstraction, the ability to generalize experiences across tasks without explicit retraining. This doesn't mean it remembers conversations like a human. It means it remembers structures, patterns, strategies, failure modes. This is how systems learn faster over time without being retrained every cycle. And this is why Google's infrastructure advantage matters more than raw model size. The role of multimodality in Google's endgame. Text-only intelligence hits a ceiling quickly. Google knows this better than anyone because it owns the world's largest multimodal datasets. Gemini 3's visual, audio, and spatial reasoning upgrades aren't side features, they're prerequisites. AGI doesn't live in text. It lives in the world. By training Gemini 3 to understand images, diagrams, videos, and physical relationships, Google is teaching it how reality works, not just how language works. That's the difference between an assistant and an intelligence. An AGI that blindly follows instructions isn't intelligent, it's programmable. Google appears to be testing where the boundary lies between guidance and independence. The anti-gravity effect on developers. Traditional development flows are linear. You write code, call APIs, test outputs. Gemini 3 changes that relationship. Developers increasingly describe it as a collaborator that reshapes how problems are framed before solutions are implemented. Instead of asking, "How do I solve this?" they ask, "How does Gemini think this should be solved?" That reversal is subtle and massive. It pulls human reasoning into the model's orbit, not the other way around. Why Google isn't marketing this aggressively? If Gemini 3 is so powerful, why the quiet rollout? Because premature attention is dangerous. Google doesn't want regulators, competitors, or the public fixated on AGI narratives before the system architecture is mature. Loud hype invites scrutiny. Quiet capability invites integration. By the time the world realizes what Gemini has become, it won't be optional anymore. How this differs from OpenAI's trajectory. OpenAI iterates publicly. Each release is a moment, a model, a conversation. Google iterates structurally. Gemini 3 isn't meant to be a destination. It's meant to be invisible infrastructure that intelligence flows through. That's why it feels unfinished, because it is. AGI isn't launched. It's assembled. Intelligence becomes ambient. You don't open it. You exist inside it. That's the shift most people haven't noticed yet. The risk Google is willingly taking. Letting a system reinterpret goals is risky. It invites unpredictable behavior. It complicates alignment. It scares regulators. But Google understands something fundamental. Intelligence that cannot adapt goals cannot survive reality. They are trading short-term stability for long-term capability. That's not recklessness. That's confidence. Why this signals a post-chatbot era. Chatbots are interfaces. AGI is an environment. Gemini 3 behaves less like something you talk to and more like something that surrounds you. It fades into workflows, anticipates needs, and reshapes processes. This is the end of AI as an app. The competitive shockwave this creates. Every other AI lab now faces a strategic dilemma. Do they build smarter models? Or do they build ecosystems? Gemini 3 suggests that model superiority without integration will matter less over time. Intelligence that can't act across systems will be boxed in. That pressure is already visible. Why regulation will struggle to catch this? Regulators look for products. Gemini 3 isn't a product. It's a layer. You can't regulate a layer the same way you regulate an app. By the time rules are written, the layer will already be embedded everywhere. What AGI means in Google's language. Google rarely uses the term AGI publicly. Internally, AGI isn't defined as consciousness or self-awareness. It's defined as general problem-solving across domains, with minimal retraining. By that definition, Gemini 3 isn't AGI. But it's closer than anything Google has ever released. And more importantly, it's pointed in the right direction. Outro. Gemini 3 wasn't chaos, it was disclosure. Google didn't announce AGI, it demonstrated intent. If this breakdown helped you see the hidden architecture behind the headlines, like the video and subscribe to NeuroWire Signal. Because the future of AI won't crash into us, it will quietly change gravity itself.